Hello everyone. So I'm not sure if there are any non-English, non-Thai audience around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present in English and also in Thai as well. I'm Tad Pong Thawan Kamon from KBTG, and the topic I'm going to talk today is Programmable Bank leveraging open banking APIs in mobile applications. สวัสดีนะครับผมทัดพงศ์นะครับพงศ์ถาวรชื่อเล่นชื่อทีมนะครับก็มาจาก KBTG นะครับก็วันนี้ก็เป็นเกียรติที่ได้มาพูดที่นี่นะครับวันนี้ผมจะพูดเรื่องเกี่ยวกับProgrammable Bank นะครับก็คือถามว่าเราจะสามารถจะเอา banking API นะครับในฐานะที่เราเป็น mobile developer เนี่ยเอามาใช้ประโยชน์เลยในการพัฒนาแอปพลิเคชันของเรานะครับผมก็ disclaimer ก่อนนะครับก็อันนี้จะเป็นคล้ายๆเป็น overview นะครับนี่เป็น overview ของ Fintech แล้วก็ banking API ของทั้งต่างประเทศและในประเทศด้วยนะครับผมรวมไปถึงว่าในฐานะที่เราเป็น mobile developer เนี่ยเราจะใช้ประโยชน์จากมันได้ยังไงนะครับผมในฐานะที่เหมือนว่าเป็น user หรือว่ารู้สึกว่าAPI ตัวนี้เนี่ยมันยังไม่เข้ามาในบ้านเราอะไรเงี้ยเราดูซิว่าเราสามารถที่จะทำมันขึ้นมาหรือว่าจะไปหาใช้ที่ไหนได้บ้างนะครับรวมไปถึงว่าถ้าเราจะใช้ API อะไรสำหรับแอปพลิเคชันเราเนี่ยมีไกด์ไลน์ยังไงบ้างนะครับอันนี้จะไม่มี detail implementation หรือว่าเป็นพวก UX UI design เท่าไหร่นะครับผม So the topic I'm going to talk today is about like the overview of fintech and banking APIs around the world, and also the state of the art of the APIs in our local market. And I'm going to talk about the potential opportunities as a mobile developer, how you can use these kind of APIs in your application, and also I'll touch a little bit upon what you should consider when you decide to pick which API to use in your mobile application development. So here's outline of my talk: motivation, categorization of API, how many type of API are out there, and what APIs you can use, and also the adoption considerations. If you want to pick up and use some APIs, what are the things you should consider? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about APIs in the local market, in Thailand in particular, what kind of fintech and banking APIs that are available for you and which one you should use. And then I'll go to conclusion. ครับก็อย่างที่บอกเราก็พูดถึงอาราพบทก่อนแล้วก็รวมไปถึงว่าผมก็จะพูดถึงว่าในโลกเรานี้มีfintech หรือ banking API อะไรบ้างเกี่ยวกับการเงินนะครับที่เราสามารถใช้ได้แล้วก็ผมจะพูดไปถึงว่างั้นเราควรจะเลือกใช้ยังไงแล้วก็สุดท้ายว่าในประเทศไทยเรามีความคืบหน้าเกี่ยวกับ Open API ไปถึงไหนแล้วนะครับแล้วก็จะสรุปนะครับผมก็ what's API? How many of people here are developers? How many of them? How many of you know what API means? How many of you don't know? Okay, so I think everyone knows pretty much because if you're a developer, you should know like API, right? API are standardized sets of requirements governing how software communicate with others. So the internal API, it's pretty much like when you write a big large scale software, right? It's impossible for you to develop something big without breaking those system down into parts, right? And then the interaction between those parts are pretty much done via the API. And then recently we have seen the trend about the open API, which means that all the software components do not have to be written and used within the same organization. You could outsource some of the functionalities to others so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and then you can just focus on your application logic while leveraging other people's API, right? Why API? So some example that many people might have known already are Uber, right? Everyone knows Uber, right? But how many of you know that Uber use mapping API from Google? They use when the driver or the customer use the service, the email that each customer receive is actually from the SendGrid, which is another transactional email service. When you want to call or receive SMS from Uber, it's done via Twilio, which is another SMS software company. Payment service. Actually, Uber doesn't handle payment by themselves, but they use another company service called Braintree that handle the payment services. Obviously, Zendesk, right, for help desk, the same way, they use Zendesk for help desk service, and also for all the identity and password management, they outsource this functionality to one login, which is another company. So imagine if you're Uber developers, and then if you don't use any of these and you have to write everything from scratch, you can imagine how painful it is, right? So that's why as everyone may have been aware that API is very important, for the mobile software development. So If you go to a website called Programmable Web, which is kind of the API directories for all kinds of APIs, you could see the trend of the open APIs. That in the past 10 years, we have seen the tremendous growth of the APIs that are available for you to use. And right now, as of now, I think we have about like 17,000 APIs that you can use across the globe. And this is just only the ones that are registered with Programmable Web, but there are so many other APIs that are out there, and that we don't know yet. And also out of that 17,000 APIs, there are about 2,500 open APIs that are related to fintech and banking. For example, payment, e-commerce, credit cards, invoice, and currency. Note that these are all global APIs, right? And I'll touch a little bit about the local API, domestic API later. But you can see the trend that is increasing. And you know that when there are many redundant APIs coming up, you know what's gonna follow up, right? Standards. So right now there are multiple standards that govern try to govern the financial and banking APIs. Most of the standards are initiated from Europe, and that's one standard from Singapore. And eventually, like when you decide to use when you publish another any kind of APIs, soon it might be a good idea for you to look to keep an eye on this kind of standard, so that for sure that in the future you could. If your API is standard compliant, then it's encouraging other customers to use your API as an API designer. So now I'm going to talk about the category of the APIs that are available globally, and this is only for the fintech and banking APIs. You can see that there are many types of fintech and banking APIs like payment, accounting, Bitcoin, investing, right? And you can see that there are many household names here, and some household names appear more than one categories. For example, Visa, MasterCard, or Google or Apple. And I'll touch up on a few categories that might be beneficial for your mobile application development a little bit. So first thing first, I think this is one of the most common and important APIs that many mobile application developers use, payment gateway APIs. How many of you use payment gateway API into your apps? A few, right? How else you can get your customer to pay to you, right? I mean, so the goal is to transfer customer payments to merchant accounts. It's pretty much standard that you have a mobile application and you're selling some service and you want the customer to pay for you. So payment gateway APIs allow you to hand off all this transaction management to the payment gateway API server, and then you just don't have to handle all this transaction by yourself. So the structure is like, when the customer submit the card, right, to pay for the service, right? Your application hand off this control flow to payment gateway API, and payment gateway API will pop up some sort of the dialog for your customer to enter the credit card and so on. And then when this process is done, then the payment gateway API will process that credit card transaction. And then at the end of the day, you can get all those payment back to your bank account. And there are many features that are additional to this payment gateway API, such as dashboard reporting. You can see, at the end of the day, how many payments have been made, and how much you get at the end of the day, right? How much money you get. Refunds, recurring payments, for some subscription service. Like for example, you write a online magazine application, and you want your customer to pay the subscription fee for you every month. So you don't have to do it by yourself, right? You just hand off all this kind of activities to the payment gateway APIs. Like some example includes PayPal and Omise, and many of you know these two names already. Okay. The next thing is another side of the payment, which is called Authentication Authorization APIs. For example, right, think about Android Pay and Apple Pay, right? For some big company or big service, many customers trust them, right? So they register their account with the credit card to their Google Pay or Apple Pay, right? So now when the user, when the application want to charge a user, imagine the user just click one button. And then this button, click to pay for Android Pay, and then the user will be required to log into, let's say, Google account. And then once they log in Google account, then they can get the credit card details, right? For them to use to charge. I mean, to pay to your application. The key thing here is that the user just need to click one click, and then everything else. If they already signed into Google account, then or if they already use Android phone, it's really easy for them to just click 2 clicks, 1 click to pay, another click to confirm, right? For the user, it's very easy. It's also more secure because usually when Google Payment API receive the confirmation, it will generate one-time credit card credential to send to your application to charge the user. So if let's say if something bad happened to your application or something someone has someone could get that number. That credit card number is just for one-time use, as it's not usable anymore. So this way it is more secure for the user, right? So this is for Authentication Authorization APIs. Payment Acceptance APIs. This is pretty good for, let's say, sales side and point of sale applications. Usually it's hardware assisted. For example, you set up some brick and mortar store, like you sell some bakery, and then you write the checkout, the counter application that include the catalog of your products in your restaurant, in your cafe, and then you pick what the customer choose and you click checkout. Then you could use this hardware to accept the payment from the user, and then those type of hardware usually come with the API that you can integrate with your application to charge the credit card from the user. So one example is Square, which is pretty common in US and UK, and iSettle. So it's kind of the good question to see if this type of hardware assisted payment could come to Thailand or not. So another type of APIs that might be beneficial is Remittance APIs, which means that you use this kind of APIs to do the transfer between countries. So usually, for this kind of API provider, right, they set up the partnership with many banks across the globe. And then, so for example, you want to transfer money from Thailand to let's say US. So if you use this kind of service, they will handle everything for you. They will handle the conversion. They will handle handle the transfer of the money from the sender to the receiver. And example include like MasterCard, OFX, Uphold. And this is for some country, this is really important and useful. For example, right? For some companies or some mobile developers in let's say South America, where the currency is not really strong and could be weakened at any time. They use this kind of service to transfer their money from their local currency to USD, which is a relatively stronger currency. And then, that could prevent their asset from being devalued, for example. And this is this example of, how easy it is right now for a mobile developer in South America to convert their asset into USD and then transfer and then do the transaction to, let's say, US and UK. The next one is pretty broad, but also one of the most useful one for mobile application is as well is data APIs. Basically, I'm covering a lot of, I'm grouping of many of the APIs together, and basically this one is to provide useful financial information. It's pretty broad, right? If you break this down, you could have the API such as Bloomberg, Reuters, or XIgnite that basically gives you the information about all the financial companies in the stock market. You could see their balance sheet, that you see their stock price as of now or in the past 6 months, for example. Also Google Finance and Yahoo Finance comes with the currency exchange rate. For example, you could use this to check if you want to see the conversion rate between one currency to another currency. Let's say you develop mobile application that requires this kind of conversion from let's say between Thailand and some other foreign country. This one could be used to retrieve the information to check the currency rate, right? Account information. Many banks right now open up their API so that a third-party application could read with the consent of the user, of the account holder, could read the balance, points, credit card points, due date, transaction from the account to the third-party mobile application, and I'll touch upon that in the local market later. Account aggregation and analytics API, for example, like there are some API provider company that go ahead and partner with many banks across the world, so that they can get the tab on each of the bank database, right? And then let's say you have like let's say 10 accounts in 10 banks. If you use this which is so-called account aggregation service, you can just sign in only with that service, and then you can get the information from 10 banks from 10 accounts that you own, and then it will just retrieve all the information and present it in one dashboard. And that's one of the useful stuff, right? Because like many people have many bank accounts. Fraud detection. For example, you are the business owner and you own the mobile application, and you want to track the transaction that your customer make, and you want to avoid the fraud. For example, if somebody stole other people's credit card and then use it in your mobile application, for example, there are some APIs that use machine learning techniques. For example, the company called Feeside, they use machine learning technique to detect any anomalies and fraud that can happen in your system or in your mobile application. Accounting APIs. This is one of the APIs that help reduce the pain of documenting and bookkeeping for your company or your application, right? Imagine that, I understand that the process here about documents are still manual. Imagine that like invoice, bills, travel and expense, so on, right? So this kind of API could help you digitize all of this paper into the database, and then it could be combined with many of other applications. For example, the picture the picture above is the first picture is from Intuit, which is like one of the biggest like financial accounting companies in US. They make their system as an open platform so that you can have many other companies plug into that platform and then provide use their accounting service. For example, let's say you have the bill, right? In US, right? And when you receive the bill payment from your vendor or from your supplier, you just take the photo of the bill, and that's it. And then the photo will be processed, and then all the invoice that come in the paper form will be digitized into this accounting database. And then you can use that to do many things. Like, so once everything is recorded in the database, you could process, you could send an email, you could do the accounting, you could do the budget projection, and so on. You could use it to prepare the tax for you. Another example is that this is a collaboration between two companies. One is Xero, which is the accounting API service. They are really specialized in transforming like bill and paperwork and everything into digital format. Another company is OFX, which is specialized in remittance API. So they are good at like helping like one person transfer one money to another country, from one currency to another currency, and then glue together. They come with a new kind of service, which is called cross-country invoicing, which means that like you use some vendor in, let's say, China. So the vendor from China received issue you an invoice in paper base, right? With this service, you could just snap the picture of the invoice in Chinese currency and store in your database, and then have them email to you in the email format, and you just click pay, and then everything will be handled. Your conversion from Thai baht to Chinese yuan, everything is done within just one click. So you can imagine that the powerful of collaboration between APIs. This is one example of them. Lending API. So this is another thing that could be used in mobile application, right? So lending API is pretty much for peer-to-peer lending. You have someone who want to invest money, want to lend the money. You have another group of people who want to borrow the money. So this kind of API can basically pair the two group of people together, and then can create the peer-to-peer lending, and we also call this microfinancing. And there are many types of lending types, like personal loan. If somebody want to borrow some money for do something, another person have money from let's say across the globe, they can use this service to discover the borrower and then make the loan and then get repaid with the interest. And one interesting thing is, for example, right? Let's say you develop the mobile application for medical for doctors, And say, for example, if the doctor charge your patient, right, and the patient doesn't have money at that point, you can use this lending API to find somebody who could lend the money to the patient, so that the patient can have money to use medical service. Example include like lending club and Kiva. I know that we are touching a lot of things that are pretty foreign, but I'll touch local market later. So and then after I talk about all the fintech APIs, list, you can see that there are a lot of APIs. Some of the API might be useful for your mobile application. Some of them might not be very useful, right? But I would like to summarize on, for example, like how to pick APIs, right? First thing, I think many people use APIs already, and this guideline doesn't have to be applied only to the finance API, but also like other type of APIs, right? The first thing is the support, right? The level of support you get from the API. For example, right? What kind of protocol do they support? Do they support JSON, XML, SOAP, or REST or not? The more level of support you have, the more variety of the format that you can choose to be consistent with your application. SDKs, right? I mean, you could just send the REST API, call the REST API, or some of the API providers provide like, SDK for several languages like Python and Go. And that kind of give you another level of convenience, right? You don't have to generate the REST and JSON format every time, right? Documentation, right? Documentation is also another aspect that if you want to know how to invoke this API, how to call this API, documentation is also one of the things that you should look for. Troubleshooting, right? If you call the API and then it doesn't perform as you expect, like what service they offer to help you resolve the problem when they use the API. Another thing, especially another consideration, especially, and that's very important, also very important in the finance domain, is compliance, right? So before you want to use some of the payment gateway APIs or accounting APIs, you need to make sure that the API provider conform to the standard either globally or locally. For example, PCI DSS is the standard for the payment card. BOT, Bank of Thailand standard. This is important for companies and API providers in Thailand, right? Everything that touch or is related to money has to be approved from the BOT, right? ISO 20022 which governs the standard between two financial institutions when they exchange the message, right? Let's say JSON or XML. That is a standard for that in the financial domain. So make sure that whichever API you choose, you make sure that it complies with the standard. Security, right? No brainer. If you some of the API and then the API used store your client credit card, and then let's say the credit card is leaked. If there's a security hole in their API, right? So what the customer will remember is not that API provider, right? It's your app, right? They will say, oh, I use your app and then my account got hacked. Right? This is something that you have to be careful whenever you use any financial or banking APIs. Usability, right? This one is the next thing is usability, which means that how easy it is to use the API. This is pretty much like on the user side, on your application side, that whenever you call the API, which one that you feel that is easiest to use, right? The next thing is coverage and reach. Let's say payment gateway API or let's say mobile wallet API. You want to use the API that have the widest reach, right? I mean, like that have a lot of user base. Or, for example, if you want to do use the Remittance API to transfer money to other countries, like how many you have to check how many countries that transfer API support, right? It may be just 10 countries or maybe 100 countries. The next thing is credentials. Credentials mean like how can you trust that API provider to be there in the next 10 years, for example. Let's say you use some of the provider that have really cool APIs, it's really good to use, and then suddenly next month that company is gone, right? So you're screwed, right? So that's why credentials are also important. You want to pick the API that that are provided by the stable like companies, the one that can ensure you that like they are here to stay. The last thing is cost. Definitely, like if you judge everything and then you can based on your budget, right? But some of the API providers charge you on monthly basis, or number of user, or it might be just charge you from like based on the number of transaction, number of API calls. Be sure that like you know your application very well. You know how many people use your application, how many API calls, and then you can do the cost projection and pick the one that give the best cost benefit to you. So I talk a lot about the international APIs, and now I'm gonna do some comparison and jump back to let's say Thailand, for example. Like what are the state of the APIs, open APIs in our country. So we can see that like on the left hand side we have the international APIs like SWIFT, which is standard way to transfer money between two banks. They also have the specification for to govern the financial API and banking APIs. You have some like big software companies such as CA, which is one of the biggest software companies in US, providing some API and then a platform for the developer to write application on their platform. You have some of the biggest bank in Spain, BBVA, that arrange that held like let's say yearly hackathon to allow and to allow the developer to develop like the next coolest application for their banking application. And obviously they also open the APIs to those developers and applicants. They have launched since 2013. And also like Visa, which is one of the biggest credit card company, right? Open like 200 API that span across many categories. These are all like for the international side. On domestic side, it's a little bit like slower because we know that there are many more regulations, everything in Thailand, right? So for payment gateway, everyone pretty much knows about OMISE, right? And 2C2P, right? That's for payment gateway. And recently, AIS, which is mobile operator in Thailand, right? One of the mobile operators in Thailand opened up their API for mobile payment, account verification, and billing. So basically, if you use this kind of APIs, you could listen to the user base of AIS, for example. Line API for notification, for login, for messaging, for beacon, right? Let's say you open up a store, and then you can use a Bluetooth device that broadcasts your message, right, to any customer nearby that you have some promotion or something in your store, and then that could provide the advertisement to the user to come. For KBank, which is basically the parent company of KBTG, we are opening many APIs for open use, like for account inquiry, for user account list, for credit card summary, credit card points, credit card details, and there are many more to come. So we could. It's easy to see that the trend is going right. I mean, like we are going to see many more open APIs coming in Thailand. So I'll talk a little bit about what APIs KBank provide, right? For example, many of you may have been familiar with the payment API, which is called like K-Mobile Banking Plus. So this is another way for the customer, right, to pay for your service, for your application. Let's say that you have the application and then you want to charge a user. So if the user happen to have K-Mobile, KBank credit card or KBank account, so you can provide the option for the user to click on to use the K-Mobile Banking Plus to pay to your application or service. And it's just only 2 clicks basically. So if your user is a K-Mobile Banking Plus user, they will just click the button and then confirm the amount and then just click pay, and everything will be just easy for the user side. On the merchant side, you could see that this is a good way for your application or for your service, for your business to accept payments from 7 million active K-Mobile users. So if you provide this service as a way for your store to charge the user, you could get 7 million K-Mobile users to pay for your service very easily. So this is one of the good thing, and we are KBank. This is one of the trustable APIs, right, in Thailand, right? So So everyone will trust this platform and then use it to pay without questioning. For the data APIs, we are opening up a few data APIs for anyone to come to use. For example, if you get consent from the user, from the account holder, you could use your system to retrieve information of the account holder, account balance, account credit card points, credit card transaction. And right now in this Droidcon event, we also have 2 working prototypes that you can see and try it in our KBTG booth on the upper floor. So the first prototype is for, let's say, for the Android application to retrieve the information of the account holder and credit card holder, and display the aggregated data to the user, to the account holder in just one screen. For example, if they have 3 bank accounts, 2 credit cards from KBank, you could use the API to retrieve all the balance from the account and the credit card, and then it can compute the total asset plus total asset in terms of cash and credit card of the user. And also you can click on to check on the cash flow that the user received in this month, the spending that the user spent during that month, and you could look at the transaction level. You can click on the credit card and then see what transaction that the user made to where and for which product. This is for Android application. This is one of the showcase that we showcase the use of our Open API. Another prototype that we are working on is called K-Mobile Banking Plus on Google Home, and many of you might already have seen this, but in any case, I'm going to show you some of the 1-minute videos to demonstrate the use of our Open API with the integration with Google Home.
Okay, Google, open K-Mobile.
Sure, here's K-Mobile. Welcome to K-Mobile Banking Plus. How can I help you?
What is my credit card balance?
Your current credit card balance is 42,575.50 baht. Your current credit card limit is 49,000.00 baht.
How many points do I have?
Your K-Bank reward point is 7,069.0 points as of the 8th of June 2016.
When is my payment due?
The payment of your credit card is due the 12th of March 2014. Your credit card statement balance is 45,388.65 baht.
Okay, Google, stop.
Sure, cancelled.
What you have seen in the movie is a real thing, right? Is a real thing. It's not just like chatbot or something. This is an actual working prototype that you could try on in our booth upstairs. So then I will touch a little bit on how we do that, right? So this is the deployment diagram that we use to create the K-Mobile Banking Plus experience in Google Home. So usually the user interact with the Google Home, you interact with the assistant platform component that is provided by Google. And then when the user speak anything, right? Let's say check balance or check my point, it will send it invoke the command to the trigger that will call the conversation action mode in the Google Home component. And when you receive the input, so it will pass all that sentence into, let's say, it will recognize, let's say, balance point, credit card, and then it will find the right API to call. So we use a Heroku API hosting website service that will receive the REST API API request from the Google component and then convert the format that could be understandable by the KBank API. And then when it requests, let's say, balance from the Open API, when you receive the JSON format from the KBank Open API, the Heroku application will convert the format into the format that is understandable by the Google Assistant module. For example, like you receive the amount. Heroku API receive the amount of the balance of the bank account. The Heroku application will need to generate a sentence in English sentence and throw that sentence back into the assistant module, and then SS module will then speak that sentence to the user. So everything is pretty easy to use, and we developed this application within only just 1 or 2 days. And that's illustrating like the power of like integration between like Google Assistant API and KBank Open API. Another service, Open API that we are opening, that KBank and KBTG is releasing, is document certification APIs. So imagine that you have multiple partners, right? Multiple business. They want to exchange document to each other. What is the best way to exchange a document to each other such that everyone trusts the document, the database, right? So if you use a single centralized database, you could see that like if that database sits into one of the partner, other partner may not trust that, right? Because it's the database is owned by only one partner. If you put it to some central authority or central or third party service, right? Then if the third party service is compromised, then you lose all this documentation, and then the documentation could be corrupted, could be tampered, could be changed. So we are building the document certification API, which is called Origin Cert API. So the Origin Cert API is built on top of blockchain technology. So many of you may have been familiar with the blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is a distributed database that is not the data is written into the database. It is trusted. Nobody can tamper with it. So it's the same technology behind Bitcoin. So if everyone knows about Bitcoin. So when the good thing about this is that whenever you get a document and then when you put into the blockchain, then nobody can change that document. Nobody can change the document. Also, this database is replicated to all the partners. So it's easy for any partner to check if the document is valid, is authentic or not. And it is easy for many people, for all the partners to understand the same thing. There will be no dispute, there will be no disagreement about this. The key thing about here is that the blockchain API itself is really raw, it's really hard for the end user to use. So KBTG initiate this Origin Cert API on top of the blockchain so that it will be easier for the partners or the user to use. For example, you have one document, you just create document with the document content, and then you can click the UI to share this document to all the partners, for example. And you could see that this could be beneficial to many of the business in Thailand, and also as a mobile application. For example, you have some document you want to certify, or you create some document that you want to make sure that everyone trusts this document. You could put that into this API. And right now we are partnering with many big players in the business. For example, we're partnering with PTT, which is one of the biggest petrochemical companies in Thailand. We are partnering with the provincial electricity authority. We are partnering with the municipality electricity authority. Metropolitan Electricity Authority. การไฟฟ้านครหลวงการไฟฟ้าส่วนภูมิภาคนะครับผม So this service, one, it will be used to exchange and prove documents among all these partners. This is one of the open APIs that we are releasing later this year. So what about like our strategy, right? So let's say like if many of you are interested to partner with us, or you want to use APIs that are provided by KBank or KBTG. So right now we divide the API set into 3 sets. Okay, apart from the private API, the public API could be completely public open API. Anyone who want to use it can just use it with just a simple registration process. And then the next thing, we have the member open API. Some of the API are more sensitive, and then we want to allow only the qualified participant that sign our NDA to use it. And then the third part is the partner open API. This is only for the big, large scale, selected partner that signed a contract with us. As of now, the partner, the partner open API is already in production and is already released to many of the big, the large scale partner. From the member only API and public API, right now we are in the process of launching it in production, but right now they are still in the form of sandbox. But we are moving that. We are moving fast on that direction to move everything to the production. So right now, if anyone want to try, our API in our sandbox, you can contact us via openapi@kpdg.tech. So we believe that, by opening up this API, it will provide a win-win situation to many parties. Like consumer will enjoy a wider range of mobile banking applications. Partner developers, mobile application developers could use our banking service and then focus on your application logic and then generate the next generation application, more killer apps, right? For the bank, this is basically a way to reduce time and cost to market, right? And also, we want to promote innovation, right? We want to offer the service to anyone who could add some value to the ecosystem. And we want to also find a new marketing and business opportunity for the bank as well. So we believe that by opening up the API, then everyone can enjoy the benefit of it. So in conclusion, all the things that I've said. So I think that Open API is already powerful tools for developing applications and would provide the value to the ecosystem. And right now, banking and fintech APIs are on the rise. And as you can see, there are many potentials and use cases that we can think about, and then who knows, right? I mean, when you go back home and you think of some implication of this, and you can come up with some business or service or some application for the users. And also, but one thing that we would like to emphasize is that you need to be careful when you pick the right APIs, right? Because this is important, especially for the banking and financial APIs. It's really critical, right? And you want to make sure you pick the right partner, the right service provider. The last thing is that banking and fintech APIs in Thailand are still at the beginning phase, but it will grow bigger soon, and you could expect to see more and more coming. So, and that concludes my talk. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write to openapi@kpdg.tech. For any inquiry, like partnership requests or proposal, we are happy to listen. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Thank you very much.